All right. Did we freeze up? Did I freeze up here? No, I didn't freeze up. Look at that. All right, we got the palm tree open. Palm tree open. So my teammate Kyle sent me a whole list. It was already pre-done. I just had to go through and pick out some videos for a playlist. So I went to YouTube and I set up a playlist for the palm tree. Some of the holes were epic fails. I did because there's some of these holes in here I'm doing max overpower hook shots on. So it's like giving you a starting spot. But let's go through and check this out. So Kohong is gonna. This is Kohong Resort, the Oasis, and Santa Ventura. So let's check out hole number one. I believe that this is right. Hole number one is Kohong Resort hole. Kohong Resort hole number one. All right, let's think about how we can play this hole. We got a bunch of different options here. So in one-on-one play, a lot of times you're just going to play to here. This can be difficult depending on your club, whether if you're trying to start off on this side, you're going to need some backspin in order to stick it there. And I don't really like the shot from over here. I don't like bouncing over this sand. And I don't really like being up here in the front. I don't like this angle very much. So you've got a couple different ways that you can come at this. I think most people's ideal is going to be to end up out in this area so that you have a nice, very nice short iron. Depending on the ball you bring out, I don't know if you're in wedge range from there. I think you're still just like on the outskirts of your short iron. But most people are going to try and get in that area. So if we look at where the tee box is at, this is one of those draw a straight line from, that's where we started and that's where we want to end up out in this area. So we draw that straight line going through. And you can see you're getting very close right here, and then you're getting very close right here. So you're almost wanting to start off on the left, give yourself a little bit of separation, which puts you more in the sand. So you're going to need to get this kind of movement on your ball, and then you're going to want it to change direction, and these S's are impossible. So that's what people will do is thread that needle going through here and a little bit of separation here, and they'll end up more like on the tip down here than getting way out there. If you hit perfect a lot and that's your ammo, you'll be able, there is a window there, but it's one of those windows that if you hit great to the right, you could potentially end up caught up here, which is a problem. If you hit great to the left, you may make it past this, but you'll get caught up over here, which is less of a problem. Depending on what clubs you have, you could easily make it on from there. I'm pretty sure if you've got the right clubs, you can make it on from here as well. The other way you can come to this hole is you can bring an Apocalypse, a Rock, a QB, just depending on what level your clubs are at. And depending on if you've got a club, you want a club that's got a lot of curl or a lot of curl. And getting out here to the right distance. So if you're using one of your more accurate clubs, because that's the club that you have that has a lot of curl or maybe a big topper, you may have to bring out a bigger ball to get the distance that you need so that you can come through here and try and curl that ball right straight up this fairway. It gets a little tricky right down into this area right here, whether you end up in the sand. What you really want your ball to do is you want your ball to be on a trajectory so that it's coming like this, and it involves this rough. And one of two things will happen. You'll either get your bounces right and you'll bounce over it where it'll run towards the green, or you'll clip it, and the hope is that you'll bleed out and you'll have a short chip from right there. And that is super makeable. Super makeable. You're a little downhill going up, so if you're using a rapier and you're top spinning it, you should have a pretty good shot from there. I'm going to do a max overpower hook shot to try and get that result. But I'm going to start the week off. I've always done a max overpower hook shot on this, where I'm starting off over in this range. But with variable winds, it's really difficult because even before, when there wasn't variable winds, you'd find a spot out there, and it was consistent throughout the week. So once you found a spot, you had a pretty good shot. But with varying winds here, a headwind is you're going to have to do a different adjustment because it affects the ball more. And I know that the last time we played this hole, we had the variable winds, and if the wind was blowing from this way, it was one adjustment, and if it was blowing from this way, it was a slightly different adjustment. And I started my week off by putting the entire ring set in the rough, and my white ring right on that transition. And then I started making adjustments from that point. And I believe that I had to go to the left in order to get it where I was landing right in this area right here. So the ball is coming through like this and then running towards that corner. A couple times earlier in the week, I ended up in the sand over here. In the past, because I was making a big swing trying to get a better look at the gap, in the past I've ended up in the sand over here. The big fear on a hole like this, doing a max overpower hook shot, is that you'll end up in the drink. Anywhere you end up down here, if you've got any kind of recovery clubs, you should be able to get up there and recover. But this is definitely a hole that we can get an eagle on, and we can put ourselves in a really good spot. Consistency-wise, I think it's much better to bring out like an APOC, even a lower level APOC, like a APOC 4 has enough curl and distance that you could get yourself up to this area right here with the curl and try and pull yourself up. But I think that with just a overpower shot, you know, getting up for most people, getting up into this area right here gives you a really, you know, half the distance. You're definitely in your wedge from here. So if you can work yourself into your wedge by getting up there, and I'm not sure where that line starts, and you could change that line too by bringing out a bigger ball. But I'm gonna try the shot here with an APOC, just because I didn't have an APOC in my back for a long time. And I'm going to try it with an APOC just to see what kind of movement I can get around that corner. But if I don't like that look, or if I don't think I can get down here far enough, I'm going to bring out my extra mile and I'm going to do the max overpower hook shot from here. So it really just depends on how you want to play the hole. This way right here, I can tell you it's fun as hell, because one of two things happens. You could clip the rough or the sand right here, and you can recover from that. If you've got a Spitfire, I can't claim that for any other club, but I know if you have a Spitfire, you can recover from it. If you get through this area and you get caught up down here, it's not a bad shot. You're close. And if you have a Spitfire and a rapier and you're in the rough or the sand down there, you can run it out and you can play it very similar to a rapier. So I like this hole. This is like the worm hole. Let's see what hole number two. Let's move on to the next hole. Hole number 2, Koh Hong Resort, hole number 6. I think this is the hole. Is this the hole? Yeah, I think this is the hole too. So I have seen some people play out to here, and maybe from the Masters tees, just because of the distance that you have from the tee box to get out to here to try and run it forward. You know, your red line may be out in this area. And when you're talking about your first bounce being here and your second bounce trying to make it over, that might be difficult unless you did an overpower shot. So maybe from the Masters tees, this is a viable fairway. But from rookie, anytime I see anybody hit out here, as long as I don't end up in the rough on my tee shot, you just lost. Because you're not going to make it unless you got way down here to the end. And even there, this angle is not the angle that you want to be taking to try and sink this next shot. Where you really want to be is right down in this area right here. And there is a rough bump that you can do going right up to the cup. And so what we really want is we want wind that's blowing along this axis, or somewhere in that range, you know, somewhere in that area. Because that way, if we make a bad adjustment, it pushes us to the left or the right and we can stay in the rough. Whereas when we get a headwind or a tailwind here, we're really going to want to know what that wind adjustment is. Because if you make a bad adjustment, it's super easy to over pull it or under pull it and end up either clipping the sand or not hitting the rough at all, and that's bad. So if you're having problems with the wind adjustment as the week goes on and it's just not working out for you, if the wind is blowing headwind or tailwind, do the bounce over. You can do a bounce over from right here and you can bleed it up, and you still got a really good shot from there, because if you're using a sniper, you can lead that right up to the cup. It's a decent shot from there. I mean, don't think that just because you're taking that shot you have no shot. That you got a really good shot. But if the wind is blowing along this axis, you could play the rough bump, and I think you do have a better shot with the rough bump. So to get down into this area right here, ideally, this is all going to be about where our red line is for our club here and what club we have to bring. So what we want to do is find the ball that's going to work for our club so that our red line even if we hit this a little bit short, we can get to that rough. I'm pretty sure a sniper is going to be your best bet. I think there's another hole that's very similar to this, and I always think of that hole because the distance-wise, you have to use your Guardian in order to make that shot. But I think here, it's all about sniper because it's so far away from the rough. You're going to need topspin in order to run it up there, and you want killer ball guide when you're having to use topspin. I would use in my bag to get down into this area. Let's say you could use a navigator or you could use a katana. I would rather bring out a Titan, the king of balls, or a kingmaker, which is always better as far as cutting the wind down, and bring out my QB or my rock and use a really accurate driver to get me down into this area because it does get narrow down here, instead of using a smaller ball and sticking with a bigger club that's got less accuracy. Hole number 3. I like our shot on that though. Hole number 3 is a par 3 and it's at the Oasis. Yeah, Oasis, hole number 3. Now, the video that I posted for this hole has been redesigned, and it's been redesigned several times in several ways. Originally, this island was different, and there was a tree right here. This tree was on the island. I think the island came all the way up to there, or it was this tree was here, and it put a shadow across the field here, and there was a spot. And you would do the ride along the ridge deal. But up here at the cup, it was like this. There was a ridge, and everything fell down that ridge, and then there was a little plateau up here where the cup was at, and it was hard to get on that. And what would happen a lot of times is you'd roll up, and you'd hit the edge of it, and it would roll you down. And this putt from right here, even though you were only 3 or 4 feet away, was super hard because this hill was really steep, and it would make your ball guide go, well, here's the cup, and here's your spot, and you can't hit like this. You've got to go like this in order to bring the ball up the hill to get it back around to the cup. And it was a difficult putt, and the first thing they did was they changed this island, and they made this island more hittable. Originally, this island was hittable, but it was difficult. And there was a rough bump that you could do in one-on-one, so if somebody really screwed up, you could just come up here and drive it into the sand, or you could try that rough bump. But with the new configuration, the way they have it right here, I started off playing on the island or out here, and then I went to the island, and then I did a combination of the two. But there is a rough bump that you can do now that goes right over this tree and comes right into this area, and will rough bump you up to the cup. And this is definitely one that we're going to want to work on our wind adjustment to make sure our wind adjustment's right on this hole. So, the first time you take it, I can't remember what the wind adjustment is. So the first time I take the shot, I'll just do a normal wind adjustment and see where it puts me, and just have to get it out. It'll take a couple missed shots to figure out what kind of an adjustment you need to make in order to be on that rough. But there's a great shot at hole-in-one here with that rough bump. Although I will say that I always end up close. It seems like it's just one of those ones where you're constantly For me, I've been constantly chasing the wind adjustment. I've made hole-in-ones here, but it seems like with this shot, if you hit it perfect, you should make more. Hole number 4. What is hole number 4? Hole number 4 is Santa Ventura. Right? Santa Ventura. Hole number 6. All right. I will say that when this hole first came out, and for a long time, I hit through the trees. Because what happened was, if you bring the right stuff out and you hit through the trees, about 50% of the time, I ended up in the clear on the other side. And let's say 30% of the time, I ended up in the clear on the other side. And about 50% of the time, I ended up in the trees, but I was on the green side. And about 20% of the time, I have no idea where I ended up. It was in the sand, or it was behind the trees, or it was in a spot where I had to do something just to recover to get up there. And but there was a 30% chance that I was going to get over to the other side, and I had a chip. And this is a very difficult hole to chip on because there's a ton of movement on it. But I made eagle on this hole about 30% of the time. And then I went to the little pad over here and came in and I upped that. Now it's, if you're on, it's about 50% of the time you're getting an eagle or more. You want it to be more, obviously. But there is a super good shot to get over here. And I've actually made a hole-in-one on this par. This is the second par 4 that I made a hole-in-one on. And taking an extra mile and a Titan. Kingmaker works, any of the 3-power, low wind. And I'm pretty damn sure that it was a plus 10% on the drive. And I think in most of the tournaments that I've played this, we've had a slight little bit of a headwind. So if it was a due headwind here, I'm not sure if this number would go up to maybe a 15% wind adjustment. And you're right here in this corner. Like, I'm not sure about what this white line is, but on this one, you're up here right where this spot's at, using this shadow as a reference. And if you're using an extra mile, what's going to happen is you're going to put on, let me look at my notes, 3.5 backspin. So you're going to put on 3.5 backspin, and what you're going to see from here is you're going to see your ball guide come up, and you're going to see your ball guide go in the sand. And that's from bounce number 1 to bounce number 2. And so here's the terrain right here. So here's this representation of the terrain. So here's the terrain, and here's sand, and your ball guide's right here, and you're coming at it from this direction. And you've got all of the side spin that you can put on it. So I'm assuming maybe a Kingmaker would work better because you can put more side spin on it. And so you're actually coming at it more of this angle, and you're putting the side spin on there, and it's pulling you over to here, and you see yourself in the sand. So you see yourself right here in the sand. Now imagine that you're on an arc. So here's where you're at, and you're coming up to your ball. And so you're coming at it from this angle, and there is an arc here. So when you apply curl, if you applied curl to bring the ball to the left, then you're going to end up further out here in the sand, but it's going to be on this arc. So it's the same thing if you're trying to pull it to the right. So you're putting on right hand curl. When you pull it out to the right, if you pulled it out, and I'm always unsure when we're talking about like pulling it back, like here's the circle and here's where your ball is inside the circle, and when you're pulling it out, like where you're pulling it to. This is why curls, because somebody go, oh, I'm pulling it to the first ring. I have no idea what that means. So you have to find the spot where you're curling it over to this spot right here, and then it's going to clip that rough and then roll off to the green. But if you don't put enough curl on it, you'll end up in the sand. Or if you put too much curl on it, you'll end up in the sand. If you hit it great to the left or the right, you could end up, if you hit it great to the right, your ball guide was going to here, and you'll end up hitting over here on the edge, and there's a good chance you'll miss it. And you'll end up getting caught in the sand. If you hit it great to the right, then it's the same thing. You're going to end up over here caught in the sand. So this is really a shot that you have to hit perfect, and you've got to put that little bit of curl on there to bring it around. But imagine your arc, because what I see a lot of people do here that's a mistake is they put that first bounce where it's on the ground, and then they may even be able to see more of their ball guide. And then they're going to arc it over and bring it over here. Well, you're hitting, you didn't put it, what's going to happen is you're going to hit here and you're going to roll off to the other side, and you're going to end up in the sand. There's sand on the other side, and you'll just roll off the back. You need to come in with a little bit of backspin in order to, and so if you got a lower level extra mile, I mean, as soon as it gets like 2.5, 3.5 backspin, I think that you can, it's 3.5, but even with 2.5, you could get this shot done if you can clip that rough. But don't start too far forward. You want your ball guide to actually be going into the sand. And then you have to imagine in your mind's eye where that arc is and where it's going to put you, where you can clip that rough if I apply this much curl. So it comes in right at the hole. And you can end up, where do you want to end up on the green? Well, you want to end up closer to the hole. And you don't want to end up low. Because when you're low here, the cup is right here. And when you're low here, you have to do this way off to the side in order to get it to come up. You can't go straight at the hole. This is one of those holes like I was talking about earlier where you got to do a lot of movement. And expect that you know, like I always tell people, the way that I play is here's the cup and here's the flagpole. From the edge of the cup to the center of the cup, or the flagpole, edge of the cup, flagpole. 4 miles per hour when I'm chipping and doing stuff. This is one of those ones where the ball will drop when you're putting it. Depending on where you're putting it, the ball might drop that much. So if you're downhill like that, kind of start yourself off on the upper edge. It's super easy to miss here on these long putts. So being low is advantageous. It's better to be, when you're coming in on this hole, it's better to be to the left, because you're always going to be closer to the hole and you got a better shot there. But that is definitely the way that I'm going to go. Now, I will say, and my buddy Dale Appleby will tell you that this is the way, the last time we played this hole, this is how he did it. You come out here on the black and you got this shot coming up. And what I found is that I was more successful at making this shot and ending up on in one and then putting than I was taking this shot, because getting out here is not that difficult. It's just a shot that you need to practice and bring out a big ball with the lowest wind and your most accurate club to get out to that distance. And I believe it's a short iron coming in. And it's like a minimum short iron. So like you're in a really good spot right there, but you're coming at this hole from the bottom where you've got that big arc. And I would rather just try and get on in one. So I'm not going to play the black line. And I played it one tournament just to try it out, just to see if I got more and I didn't like it. I would rather hit through the trees and take my chances. And if you've got an upper developed extra mile, it's really easy to make it through the trees. And you can end up on this side down here with a short chip to get on. All right, what hole was that? What hole was that? Santa Ventura, hole number 6. Hole number 5 is Kohong Resort, hole number 8. How freaking long have we been talking here? 22 minutes. Hey, I actually might be ahead of schedule. Okay, on these par 3s, I'm definitely... so, there's another par 3, and I'm not sure if it's in the... I think it is in the Oasis, and I always get these two confused as far as like how I play them. I think I play down here on the flat and just go at it with a sniper. And I do believe that in one-on-one play, like when I get to this hole, if I got to this hole today and I was in one-on-one play, because I don't remember, but I would do a plus 30%. Because you're way the hell downhill. I mean, I would just automatically do that. Even from the rookie, you've got a really good angle at it from rookie. I think from the pro tees coming in at it, it plays more like the other par 3 in the Oasis. That it's very similar to this. I'm 100% sure you play with a sniper. And this is one of those holes that we play this hole in one-on-one and we take this shot. But in one-on-one, sometimes you find yourself with a marlin where your red line is such that you're up here and you have to do one bounce here and then it bounces down and then it runs to the cup. Whereas here we can start off, and I think that's because I've been playing this hole more from the pro tees. Maybe in Tour 7. Was this in Tour 7 before? But I do know that we can play this hole from right down here at the bottom. And I'm going to play it with a sniper. And I'm going to work the ball. Do I have anything written down here? Kohong Resort, hole number 8. Navigator. So a navigator, just trying to cut the wind down because you don't really need a lot of side spin. You're getting a pretty good straight shot at it. We'll have to work on the par 3s. Hole number 6. Santa Ventura, hole number 3. I remember this hole. Oh yeah, this hole's been redesigned too. This hole originally, there was a bunch of holes that were like this. Everything on this was this cut of the rough, like here. Let me clean that up a little. This cut of the rough right here. Everything outside of that was out of bounds. So if you didn't land in the fairway, you were out of bounds. There's a golf course here not too far from my house, Elkhorn Golf Course, that's up in the woods. It might actually have gotten burned down during the forest fires this year, but it was like that. I mean, you either hit it in the fairway or the first cut of the rough, or you were having to drop a ball because you couldn't find it. But now everything you see is in bounds. most people are going to come here in one-on-one play. I lay up with a QB and a Marlin right to this spot right here, and you've got a sniper shot right to the cup. And what I have learned over the years with this cup is that the cup's right here, and when you're coming at it from distance, like if you're trying to go straight out and your ball guide's looking straight at it, it's better on this hole because it drops off. There's a little bit of a hill right here, and it drops off to the left. It's better if you start off a little to the right of the cup and follow it down the hill, because if you don't acknowledge that there's that little hill there and you try and go straight at it, you'll end up off to the left. There's a little bit of a drop right there, and it's better to walk it down that hill and move it, start it off a little bit to the right, and you'll see it's going straight at the hole, and then all of a sudden it'll curve around and you'll see it where it's dropping down there, and it's better to follow that groove to try and get to the cup to make Albie. In tournament play, most people are going to be trying to get into this area right here, because from here you have, I believe that's a long iron from there. It might be, depending on ball, it might be right at the edge of your short iron, but you got a decent shot from right there. What I'm going to be trying to do is there's a max overpower hook shot here, and let me see, it's the first cut of the rough, second cut of the rough, third cut of the rough, fourth cut of the rough. And I think I started off using, I think I was 3 rings off this transition. So that means that my bullseye was right here, and I had out to my blue ring. My blue ring, I was running along this transition between the third and the fourth cut of the rough. And that's where I started the week off as far as like trying to figure out trajectory, so that if I took the wind out, so the wind's blowing me this direction, and I set my ball up in that position where I'm 3 rings off that transitional surface, and I take the wind out, even though I'm pushing up against the wind, I'm taking the side wind out. So I'm taking what's pushing me off. It might be laying me down. I'm not getting as much distance as I would because of the headwind, but at least I took out the side wind so that my landing zone is going to be similar. If there's a percentage that we need to add, then we need to add that. So like if it's headwind, we may have to add more in order to compensate. But it's not going to matter that much because it's laying us down. And try and get the right trajectory. So you take that shot, max overpower hook, and you get your first bounce right here. Second bounce, and bouncing over. I would rather try and get my bounces right, so I bounce over and stay in the middle of the fairway, because if you can make it over to the other side, you're in the middle of the fairway and you got a nice run up. I've made it onto the green one time, a long time ago, with a power 5 ball. But normally, if you can get this shot in the clear and you can get on the other side of this, now you're in short iron wedge range, just depending on how far you can run up there, and you got a really good shot at Albie. And this is a very Albieable hole. There'll be a lot of Albies on this hole. There'll be less Albies than people getting eagles, but there's going to be a pretty high percentage, I would say, in most of these brackets, 20, 30, just depending on what tier you're in. There could be 20, 30, 40% of the people that are in the bracket got an eagle on this hole, or an Albie on this hole. I'd say probably in the 20% range. That's huge when 20% of your bracket's got Albies for tiebreakers. That's why you need to get this twice. We do have options here. You still have a great, hey, if you come here and you don't have any power 5 balls, or you don't have what you need, or you can't figure the shot out, just lay that sucker up right here, and you can do it with a freaking Marlin, or with you can do it with a Marlin. You can do it with a white ball. You don't need anything on this shot. Although I've never played with a white ball because I like the side spin that you get even with a Marlin. Side spin. Hole. That was Santa Ventura hole number 3. That was hole number 6. Hole number 7. Santa Ventura hole number 2. What hole is this? Oh yeah, this par 3. And we have a serious chance of getting hole in one on this. I played this hole one day I think I was playing with Dale Appleby, and when we were, whatever tour we were playing, this hole was in there, and I started off the day with 3 or 4 hole-in-ones, and then he finished the day off, and it was like he hole-in-one this hole 4 or 5 times in a row. This is another one of those sniper shots where I'll pick a ring that I'm this off of this transition so that I can set myself up in the same spot every time. And I want to give myself plenty of room to get up there. I'll have to play this hole a few times and see exactly what the what kind of adjustments that I'm having to make. On my notes, I say a 10% for the wind. That's all I know about that par 3. That's one of those things we'll dial it in at the beginning of the week, and then that's how we'll play it all week. Oasis hole number 2. Is this one of the newer Oasis holes? Yeah, this is one of the newer Oasis holes. Let me pause this for a second and make sure that this is the hole. Yep, this is the hole. So let's talk about this hole. I have hit out here several times and been in the absolute perfect spot with a big ball, and you have a shot over there. But I've been in those spots and I didn't switch to that shot. So obviously I didn't like the look coming in. And if you weren't in the perfect spot, then it was even, you really were just putting yourself in a spot where you could come up here and get on the green and 2 and make your putt. But you weren't giving yourself the good eagle shot. You've got a pretty good eagle shot from here. It is from distance. And you've got to kind of bring it around a little bit. I'm going to explore at the beginning of the week, and I do this at the beginning of every tournament because my clubs change, or we get different balls, or we get, we're willing to go out there and try and hit off this island. And even if I end up in the rough on either side, but up in this distance right here, I think my chances of making this with my rough iron are just as good as making it from back here. But if I end up in the fairway up here, then we've really changed the game. I think in some winds, though, with the variable winds, this would be one of those holes where we may have, this set wind for the whole week. And that was a pretty popular direction. This kind of wind right here on that plane. If we get the right kind of wind, we could, I think we might be able to make it over here, but we might be in one of those rounds where we're going against a due headwind and it changes this shot. And so we may have to hit over here and try this shot to get in and see how the week goes. With the variable winds, it is important to be able to have different shots in your bag, because you may have one shot that really is wind dependent. And so you need to know what that next shot should be. But I've never really had a lot of success from over here. Most of the time I've hit right in this spot right here. This is it. I come out here and I try this, and when these holes first came out, we were like pounding it out there. You can make it from there. It's just hard because of this fairway right here. You can see that this fairway's got a ridge that runs like this. And so everything here is running down. And everything here is running down. And so it's really easy when you come in here and you're having to put the curl on it in order to get from the tee box to here to bring it back around. It's very easy to end up, if you overshoot and you cross that ridge with even just a little bit of speed, it's easy to end up in the rough on the other side. And it's easy to end up, if you're low, ending up rolling off into the rough on the low side. It's hard to keep it up on that ridge with that much speed, because you had to really put it in there to get it over there. But if you can end up in the fairway consistently, that is definitely a shot. But I'm always dubious about the island. I always have high hopes for the island, and then when we actually get out there, the island is not as usable as I would like it to be. Hole number 9, the Oasis. Hole number 1. All right. So I will tell you that if you want a very consistent shot at Albie every single time, you can come out here, and I'm pretty sure that there is a wind adjustment on the drive. You can do bounce number 1, bounce number 2, and run it out. And hey, here's the deal. You don't need to ever be in that rough. You don't need to be all the way to the edge out here. If you come from where the cup is out to that area and you draw the arc, if you're even at the very beginning of that, you're at the same distance to the cup as you are if you're way over here by the rough. So you don't have to hit it out there. You're actually, it's not gaining you any more distance to the cup. All it's doing is putting you at risk of rolling into that rough. Where you need to be is like towards the middle, right on the other side. And you got a great shot with a sniper, hammerhead, great shot at getting an albie just coming in from distance. The other thing you can do is you can bring it works best with a club that's got a lot of curl, and you don't necessarily need the distance because you're going to run out of fairway up here. So with a QB, a 3-side spin ball, a rock, especially if you got an upper developed rock, because it's got more distance than a QB, and it's got a lot of curl, almost 100. So you can really whip it around the corner and try and get it up here. You can come at it in multiple ways. If you need to recover, you can come at it from the left or the right, and I've always preferred coming at it from the left. You've got more room over here. And I'm just trying to recover anyways, and it does have a little bit of a backboard, and it will kind of roll back down to the cup. So you can start off up here, and you can put on lots of curl, and you can come around, stay the hell away from that sand, just be out in the middle, and you can put curl on it and just bring it back around to the cup and recover. You have a rough bump that you can do right here that is fantastic. If you've got a backspin club, and if you had an upper developed Guardian, I believe that an upper developed Guardian's got enough topspin to get you up there. So if you were redline issuing, you could do backspin. You could do this rough bump. You can come at it from this direction. You can come at it from this direction. But the rough bump is what you're really, that's like if you're trying to hit over. If you're hitting over to here, I think albie wise, I would probably rather take the shot from here to get into the cup than to take any shot from over here. I mean, really the only reason that you'd run a hit over here is that you were really trying to force the issue with the rough bump, because that rough bump is spectacular. I love this hole. I love dinking around in this hole, and really the whole thing is that you want to put yourself in the right spot to do the rough bump. So just hitting up here and not getting in the rough. In one-on-one play, I play this to this rough. This is where I'm playing. And the reason that I play it to the rough from right there is from the rough right here, I can do the rough bump with my Nirvana. And so I do a max overpower hook shot where I start myself off and I'm right here. This is where my ball guide's at, and I do the max overpower hook shot with a Marlin, and it'll bounce me out and through this area, and it'll get me into this rough, and from that rough area I can get on with a Marlin with my Nirvana. And if I can't, if the wind's wrong, then I can recover on this side right here and just get up on the green with my Nirvana and recover. But I get access to that rough bump with a Marlin, but I have to take it with my Nirvana. But you got a great rough bump from there. I have tried, I don't know, almost every time I played this hole. Probably the first 100 times I played it over to here. And then I started going for this side right here, and I hit normally into that rough. But in tournaments, I really want to hit right in front of this, as close up here as I can, so that I've got a sniper shot to do that rough bump. But my goal going out here is I really want to try and I've made this area over here maybe once, maybe twice. It's hard to get over there to that side. And then you can take a short iron to the cup, doing the rough bump. Awesome shot. I think one of those two ways, if you really want, I think either one of those are good viable ways. From over here you got a great shot at it. It's just from distance with a sniper. But you got an awesome rough bump from up in the front. Those are the two ways. All right, what do we got? This is just, it looks like a pretty normal tournament. There's nothing on here there are some holes on here that are super makeable. And we're going to have to, that one par 5, and we're going to have to get that par 5 down so that we can get up there close enough so that our second shot is super close, like wedge range. And get that distance down so that we can consistently make that albie. And there's a couple of the par 3s that look like they were, once we get the wind adjustment stuff, they're super, super makeable. We've got a lot of opportunities here, but it's that -12 is like, where you shot a clean round, but you didn't pick anything up. So you have to keep track on your brackets, and the whole bracketing thing, I have no idea where it's at because I really haven't played in a tournament in like the last 6 months. So seeing where the bracketing is, like really keeping track of like, are you going to have to pick some up in order just to make the next round? Or is like the minimum score, are people having difficulty with the minimum score? I think in this tournament, there's a couple holes people might have difficulty with, but overall, there's definitely a lot of holes that have huge opportunities to pick up a shot, including this one. This is a great hole to get an Albion, and it's super albiable. All right, that was the Palm Tree Open. Hey, thanks, Kyle. Thanks for sending me the stuff. Thanks everybody who listened to the channel. If you're not a subscriber, hit subscribe. I will try and endeavor to put out more content and get back on track. I'm not sure if I'll have time to play the tournaments, but I will. I will go through and shoot a practice round, and I'll practice these holes and take a look at them, and that way I can put up some fresh stuff for the playlist. But have a nice day. Thanks for watching.